There is a special kind of tiredness that comes from chasing people who keep pretending not to see you. It is not the tiredness of honest work. It is not the weariness that comes after loving well, serving faithfully, or giving from a full heart. It is a deeper exhaustion, the kind that settles into your spirit after one unanswered message too many, one delayed response too many, one half-hearted reply too many. One more moment where you find yourself checking your phone, adjusting your tone, wondering if you said too much, asked too much, cared too much, or somehow became too much. Beloved, listen gently. You were never created to beg for recognition. The original source says that what must be forced is rarely meant to stay. And for a woman of faith, that truth is not a sentence of rejection. It is a doorway into freedom. Because some doors remain closed, not because you lack worth, but because God is teaching you to stop bruising your hands on places that were never designed to welcome you. Somewhere along the way, you may have learned that persistence proves love. That if you keep reaching, keep explaining, keep showing up, keep forgiving, keep making excuses for someone's absence, eventually they will see you. Eventually they will appreciate you. Eventually they will realize your value and open the door. But beloved, love that requires you to disappear in order to be noticed is not love. It is self-abandonment wearing the language of devotion. You cannot earn a place in someone's heart by proving how much neglect you can survive. You cannot persuade someone to value you by offering unlimited patience to their indifference. You cannot make someone see your presence as sacred by treating your own presence like something disposable. And yet, many women do this quietly. They send the message first, then again, then again. They carry the conversation. They soften disappointment. They explain away silence. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe I should try one more time. And yes, sometimes people are busy. Sometimes life becomes heavy. Sometimes silence is not rejection. But when absence becomes a pattern, when effort is always one-sided, when you are always reaching while they remain comfortably still, wisdom asks you to stop calling neglect a mystery. Ignoring is not always confusion. Sometimes it is a choice. That may hurt to admit, but truth often hurts before it heals. And God, in His mercy, will not always protect you from truth if truth is what will finally protect you from self-erasure. Ask yourself gently, am I reaching because love is mutual or because I'm afraid of what the silence means? Am I giving because God is leading me or because I am trying to prove I am worth choosing? Am I calling this loyalty when it is really fear of being left behind? Beloved, chasing changes the way you see yourself. Slowly, almost without noticing, you begin measuring your worth by their response. If they answer quickly, you feel relieved. If they delay, you feel anxious. If they are warm, you feel valuable. If they are distant, you feel foolish for caring. Your emotional life starts rising and falling according to someone else's inconsistency. That is not peace. That is captivity. The Lord did not create your heart to be ruled by read receipts, silence, mixed signals, or someone else's uncertain affection. He did not place dignity inside you so it could be negotiated by people who only notice you when it is convenient. He did not call you beloved so you could live like an option waiting quietly in the background of someone else's life. You are not an afterthought in the eyes of God. You are not background noise in His presence. You are not difficult to notice, hard to love, or too much to hold. Before anyone answered your message, God called your name. Before anyone chose your presence, God formed you with intention. Before anyone valued your voice, heaven heard it. Your worth began before human recognition, and it remains even when human recognition is withheld. This is why chasing people who ignore you becomes so dangerous. Every step towards someone who keeps moving away can become a step away from the truth God speaks over you. Each time you overextend, overgive, overexplain, or overperform for crumbs of attention, something inside you learns the wrong lesson. It learns, I must work to be wanted. I must prove to be valued. I must shrink to be tolerated. I must chase to be loved. Beloved, that lesson is a lie. Love may require effort, but love does not require begging. Healthy connection may require patience, but it does not require you to carry the entire relationship on your back. Real love does not train you to read between the lines of neglect and call it affection. Real love does not make you feel foolish for caring. Real love does not keep you guessing whether your presence matters. There comes a moment when you must stop knocking on a door that keeps teaching you shame. Not because you hate the person behind it, not because you are bitter, not because you want revenge, but because your hands are tired, your spirit is tired, and God is whispering, daughter, come away from what keeps making you doubt what I already said about you. That coming away may feel like loss at first. You may miss them. You may miss the idea of what you hoped the connection would become. You may miss the version of yourself who believed if she just loved harder, the silence would turn into care. Missing them does not mean you were wrong to stop chasing. It only means your heart was sincere. Honor that sincerity, but do not sacrifice yourself to it. There is a holy difference between loving someone and running after someone who refuses to meet you with care. There is a holy difference between being patient and being repeatedly ignored. There is a holy difference between giving grace and making yourself available to emotional starvation. Beloved, God is not asking you to become cold. He is asking you to come home. Home to your own breath. Home to your own dignity. Home to the quiet place where you no longer confuse being chosen by a person with being cherished by God. Home to the truth that what truly values you will not require you to vanish first. So stop for a moment. Put the phone down. Let the silence speak. And instead of running after the one who keeps ignoring you, turn toward the God who has never looked away. The original source says, self-respect begins where pursuit ends, because continuing to chase what does not reach back slowly teaches your heart to abandon itself. And beloved, that is one of the quietest dangers of chasing someone who ignores you. It does not only exhaust you, it begins to rewrite what you believe you deserve. At first, you may not call it chasing. You may call it caring. You may call it being faithful. You may call it checking in. You may call it patience. You may tell yourself that love requires effort, and that is true. Love does require effort, but healthy effort moves in both directions. Healthy effort does not leave one person carrying the whole weight of connection while the other person enjoys being pursued without ever truly showing up. Beloved, there's a difference between love and overextension. Love gives from a place of dignity. Overextension gives from a place of fear. Love offers itself with open hands. Overextension keeps reaching with trembling hands, afraid that if it stops, everything will disappear. Love is mutual. Overextension is one-sided. Love feels like a garden being watered by two people. Overextension feels like pouring yourself into dry ground and calling the emptiness faith. And many women have learned to live this way. They become experts at adjusting their expectations, adjusting their voice, adjusting their needs, adjusting the timing of their messages, adjusting the amount of honesty they share, adjusting the way they ask for care so they do not sound too needy, too emotional, too intense, too demanding. But beloved, if you have to keep shrinking your needs to remain in someone's life, then what you are protecting is not connection. It is anxiety. Ask yourself gently, do I feel peaceful in this relationship, or am I constantly trying to earn reassurance? Am I being met, or am I being tolerated? Am I free to be myself, or am I performing a smaller version of myself so they will not pull away? Self-respect begins when you are willing to ask those questions and stay long enough to hear the truth. Pursuit keeps your eyes on them. Did they answer? Did they notice? Did they care? Did they miss me? Did they think of me? Did they choose me today? But self-respect turns your attention back towards your own soul and ask, what is this costing me? Who am I becoming while I wait for someone to see me? What part of me am I losing in the effort to be chosen? Beloved, that turning inward is not selfish, it is healing. Because there comes a point when your desire to be loved can make you careless with yourself. You may keep reaching for someone who only gives enough attention to keep you hoping. You may keep interpreting small gestures as evidence of deep care. A short reply becomes a meal for a starving heart. A sudden moment of warmth becomes proof that maybe things are changing. A little attention after a long silence becomes enough to make you forget how much the silence hurt. This is how pursuit becomes addictive. It gives you just enough relief to keep you attached, but not enough consistency to let your spirit rest. Beloved, real love does not keep your nervous system living between hope and dread. It does not make you feel high when they answer and worthless when they disappear. It does not train you to treat attention like a reward and silence like punishment. That kind of emotional cycle is not romance, friendship, loyalty, or divine assignment. It is imbalance. And God did not call you to build your identity on imbalance. There is a holy pause that can save you. The pause before sending another message. The pause before making another excuse. The pause before reaching again towards someone who has repeatedly shown you that your reaching is not being honored. In that pause, the Holy Spirit may ask, daughter, is this action coming from love or from fear? Do not rush past that question. It may reveal everything. Fear says, if I stop reaching, I will lose them. Wisdom says, if I must chase to keep them, they were never truly held by love. Fear says, maybe I should try harder. Wisdom says, mutual care does not require endless persuasion. Fear says, what if no one else comes? Wisdom says, God can bring what is aligned when you stop clinging to what diminishes you. Beloved, ending pursuit does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop performing for crumbs. It means you stop offering your whole heart to someone who only gives you fragments. It means you stop confusing your capacity to endure with a command from God to remain. Some of you are afraid that if you stop chasing, the relationship will end. But maybe the painful truth is that your chasing was the only thing keeping it alive. And if something only lives because you keep exhausting yourself to maintain it, then perhaps it is not a relationship. Perhaps it is a burden wearing the memory of one. That realization can hurt. Let it hurt, honestly. Do not cover it too quickly with excuses. Do not rush to blame yourself. Do not say, maybe I asked for too much, when all you wanted was basic consistency. Do not call yourself dramatic for noticing repeated absence. Do not accuse your heart of being needy when it is simply hungry for mutual love. Beloved, you are allowed to desire reciprocity. You are allowed to want someone who reaches back. You are allowed to stop calling neglect busy when the pattern has already spoken. When you stop chasing, power quietly returns to you. Not power over them, but power over yourself. You reclaim the hours you spent waiting. You reclaim the mental space you spent interpreting silence. You reclaim the energy you spent trying to become easier to love. You reclaim the dignity you laid down in places where your presence was treated as optional. And in that reclaimed space, you begin to hear yourself again. You begin to hear your own needs without apology. You begin to feel your own feelings without immediately editing them. You begin to notice that peace is not the same as being chosen by someone else. Peace is the fruit of no longer abandoning yourself for uncertain affection. Beloved, the right people will not make you beg to matter. They may be imperfect, they may be busy, they may have hard seasons, but they will not make a lifestyle of indifference. They will not leave you carrying the whole connection alone. They will not make you feel foolish for caring. They will meet effort with effort, presence with presence, honesty with honesty. So if you are in the holy pause today, stay there for a moment. Do not send the message just to soothe the anxiety. Do not chase the silence just because it feels familiar. Do not run after someone who keeps teaching you to question your worth. Let self-respect rise where pursuit used to live. Let God steady the part of you that fears being forgotten. Let Him remind you that your value is not proven by how hard you chase, but by the one who called you worthy before anyone else had the chance to notice. The original source says walking away restores personal authority because authority is not something you demand from others, but something you reclaim within yourself. And beloved, this is where the woman who has been chasing begins to realize that her power was never in making someone choose her. Her power was in remembering she could choose herself. For a long time, you may have thought authority meant changing the situation, making them answer, making them care, making them understand, making them finally see what your presence was worth. You may have believed peace would come when they changed their behavior, when they recognized your effort, when they apologized for the silence, when they finally became consistent. But beloved, if your peace depends on someone else becoming attentive, then your peace is still in their hands. Personal authority begins when you take it back. It begins when you say, not with anger, but with clarity, I cannot control whether you see me, but I can control whether I keep standing where I am unseen. It begins when you stop giving someone's indifference the power to define your day. It begins when you stop letting delayed replies, emotional distance, and half-hearted attention become the ruler of your inner world. Walking away may feel like weakness to the part of you that was trained to stay. That part may whisper, try again. Be patient. Don't give up. Maybe they are just busy. Maybe if you explain better, they will understand. And there are times when patience is holy. There are relationships worth nurturing through hard seasons. There are people who may be overwhelmed, imperfect, tired, or struggling, yet still sincere. But there is a difference between a difficult season and a consistent pattern of being ignored. A difficult season still carries care. A pattern of neglect carries avoidance. A difficult season may require patience. A pattern of indifference requires honesty. A difficult season may still show effort, even if small. A pattern of ignoring you leaves you carrying the whole connection alone. Ask yourself gently, am I staying because love is growing here, or because fear is holding me here? Am I walking in patience, or am I walking in self-abandonment? Am I waiting on God, or am I waiting on someone who has already shown me they do not intend to meet me halfway? Beloved, walking away is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet. It is the moment you stop sending the message first. It is the moment you stop checking whether they watched, replied, noticed, or cared. It is the moment you stop rehearsing what you might say to make them understand your value. It is the moment you stop explaining your absence to someone who never honored your presence. That quiet decision may not look powerful from the outside, but in the spirit, something shifts. Your energy returns. Your breath deepens. Your mind becomes less crowded. Your dignity begins to stand up inside you again. You start remembering that you have a life to live beyond waiting for someone else's attention. You start realizing that the time you spent chasing could have been time spent healing, creating, praying, resting, dreaming, becoming. Beloved, your life is not a waiting room for someone who cannot decide whether you matter. You are not called to sit at the edge of another person's indifference and call it loyalty. You are not called to keep shrinking your expectations until neglect feels acceptable. You are not called to keep pouring yourself into a connection where your effort is consumed but not returned. When you walk away, you are not saying, I am better than you. You are saying, I am responsible for me. That is personal authority. It is not control over others. It is stewardship over your own soul. It is deciding that your heart will no longer live at the mercy of someone else's inconsistency. It is allowing God to teach you that love may be offered, but it should never require you to surrender your dignity as payment. Some people will only notice your value when your access disappears. They may reach back when you stop reaching. They may become curious when you become quiet. They may suddenly offer attention when your pursuit ends. And beloved, this is where discernment is necessary. Do not confuse their reaction to losing access with true recognition of your worth. Sometimes people do not miss you. They miss being chased. They miss the comfort of knowing you were available. They miss the reassurance of your effort. They miss the ego-feeding certainty that you would keep coming back no matter how little they gave. But attention that only appears when you withdraw is not always love. Sometimes it is control trying to recover its place. Let time reveal the difference. A person who values you will not only respond when you leave, they will learn how to show up consistently. They will respect your dignity. They will not punish you for needing reciprocity. They will not treat your absence like a game, nor your boundary like an insult. They will understand that if they want closeness, They must bring presence, not confusion. Beloved, walking away will test your old wounds. It may awaken fear of abandonment. It may bring loneliness to the surface. It may make you wonder if you are being too hard, too proud, too guarded. But not every lonely feeling is a sign you should return. Sometimes loneliness is simply the space where self-respect is being rebuilt. Sit with God there. Let him remind you that being alone is not the same as being unloved. Let him show you that silence can become sanctuary when you are no longer chasing voices that never nourished you. Let him teach you that your authority is restored each time you choose peace over pursuit, dignity over desperation, truth over fantasy. Beloved, there is a woman inside you who has been waiting for you to stop running after what keeps running from you. She is not bitter. She is tired of being left behind by your own choices. She is asking you to come back to yourself, to your voice, to your calm, to your standards, to the God who never required you to chase him to be loved by him. So walk away if staying keeps erasing you. Not with hatred, not with revenge, not with a need to prove anything. Walk away with your shoulders lowered, your heart in God's hands, and your dignity intact. Because sometimes the door you keep knocking on is not locked against your future. It is protecting you from a place too small for your becoming. The original source says what truly values you will never require pursuit, because value recognizes value without persuasion. And beloved, this is the truth that begins to heal the woman who has spent too much of her life trying to be chosen by people who only noticed her when she was leaving. What is meant to honor you will not need to be chased into decency. What is meant to love you will not require you to perform for basic attention. What is meant to walk with you will not make you run until your spirit is out of breath. There is a kind of connection that feels like pleading without words. You do not say, "Please see me," but your actions do. You reach first. You explain first. You adjust first. You forgive first. You wait first. You lower your expectations first. You become smaller, quieter, easier, softer, less honest, less needy, less present in your own life, all so someone else does not feel pressured to meet you with care. Beloved, that is not alignment. That is emotional starvation dressed as hope. When someone truly values you, you do not have to keep convincing them that your presence matters. They may not be perfect. They may miss a moment. They may have difficult days, but their overall pattern will not leave you feeling like a burden for wanting reciprocity. You will not have to beg them to remember you. You will not have to compete with indifference. You will not have to turn every silence into a riddle and every small reply into proof that maybe you still matter. Value brings steadiness, not perfection. Steadiness. Ask yourself gently, do I feel grounded in this connection? Or do I feel like I am always reaching for something that keeps moving away? Do I feel safe to be myself? Or do I keep editing my needs so they will stay? Do I feel chosen? Or do I feel like I am auditioning for a place that should have already been offered with care? Beloved, the right connection does not make you live in emotional suspense. It does not keep you waiting at the edge of someone's attention, hoping today will be the day they finally become consistent. It does not make you feel rich from one moment of warmth after weeks of absence. It does not turn affection into a reward and silence into punishment. That cycle may feel intense, but intensity is not intimacy. Anxiety is not love. A chase is not proof of destiny. Sometimes the body mistakes instability for chemistry because instability feels familiar. If you grew up or lived in spaces where love was inconsistent, you may have learned to associate uncertainty with depth. You may think love is supposed to feel like waiting, guessing, proving, earning, and trying harder. But beloved, peace may feel strange when chaos has trained your nervous system. Calm may feel boring when unpredictability has been mistaken for passion. But peace is not boring. Peace is safe. Peace is the place where your heart can open without bracing for disappearance. Peace is where your voice can speak without fear of being punished by distance. Peace is where effort flows both ways. Peace is where love does not make you question whether you are too much simply because you have a need. God's love is not a chase. He pursues us with grace, yes, but he does not teach us that our worth depends on getting someone emotionally unavailable to finally respond. His love is steady. His presence is faithful. His care is not given only when we perform well enough. And when he teaches you what love should feel like, he begins by separating love from anxiety. Beloved, what values you will make room for you. It may not worship you. It may not revolve around you. It may not be available every second of the day. Mature love has responsibilities, seasons, limits, and rhythms. But it will not make neglect its language. It will not leave you constantly wondering whether you have a place. It will not treat your presence as optional while enjoying your effort as guaranteed. There is dignity in no longer chasing. Not because you've become superior, but because you finally stop placing your worth in hands that do not know how to hold it. You begin to understand that you can be deeply valuable and still not be valued by certain people. That does not reduce your worth. It reveals alignment. Not everyone has the capacity to recognize what you carry. Not everyone has the maturity to meet your depth. Not everyone has the character to honor your tenderness. And beloved, that is not an invitation to prove yourself harder. It is an invitation to stop handing sacred things to places where they are not recognized. When you stop pursuing what does not value you, your vision begins to clear. You start recognizing the difference between attention and intention. Attention can be temporary. Intention has direction. Attention may appear when someone is lonely, bored, curious, guilty, or afraid of losing access. Intention shows up with consistency. It makes choices. It creates safety. It does not make you carry the whole connection alone. You begin to recognize the difference between being wanted in moments and being valued over time. Someone may want your comfort, your listening ear, your encouragement, your warmth, your loyalty, your availability. But wanting what you provide is not the same as valuing who you are. That distinction can save you years. Beloved, you are not asking for too much when you desire mutual effort. You are not needy because you want care that does not have to be dragged out of someone. You are not weak because you want relationships where communication feels honest and presence feels willing. You are not demanding because you no longer want to survive on crumbs of attention. You are learning the difference between scarcity and love. Scarcity makes you grateful for fragments. Love offers presence without making you beg for it. Scarcity trains you to overvalue small gestures because they arrive after long emptiness. Love creates a steady environment where small gestures are beautiful, but not the only evidence that you matter. Beloved, when you are valued, you can rest. Your soul does not have to run laps around someone's inconsistency. Your heart does not have to build a case for why it deserves kindness. Your mind does not have to analyze every pause, every word, every shift in tone. You can simply be present, honest, soft, whole. And that kind of being is sacred. So do not chase what keeps making you feel invisible. Do not keep trying to persuade someone to value what God already declared precious. Do not keep pouring your heart into places where your presence is treated like an interruption. Stand still. Let what truly sees you come into focus. Let God remove the panic that tells you love must be pursued at the cost of yourself. Beloved, what values you will not require you to abandon you. It will meet you with care. And until it does, you are allowed to stop running. The original source says when you stop pursuing what does not value you, you begin to create room for relationships that do not require persuasion. And beloved, that room may feel empty at first, but do not confuse emptiness with loss. Sometimes what feels like emptiness is simply the space your dignity needed in order to breathe. When you stop chasing, there is suddenly silence. No more constant checking, no more rehearsing what to say, no more wondering whether your message was too honest, too warm, too much, too little. No more bending your personality into a shape small enough not to scare someone away. No more building your day around the possibility of being noticed. At first, that silence can ache because chasing keeps you occupied. It gives your anxiety a task. It gives your hope somewhere to run. It gives your fear of abandonment something to do with its hands. When you stop, all the feelings you were outrunning may rise to the surface. The loneliness, the disappointment, the embarrassment of realizing how much effort you gave to someone who was comfortable giving so little back. Beloved, do not run from that ache. Bring it to God. There is healing hidden inside the ache you have been avoiding. It may reveal where you learned to confuse being pursued with being worthy. It may reveal where old rejection trained you to fight for a place at tables that never truly prepared a seat for you. It may reveal where your heart became addicted to small signs of attention because consistent love felt unfamiliar. Ask yourself gently, what was I hoping their attention would prove about me? What part of me believed I needed them to choose me before I could feel chosen? What wound was I trying to silence by running after someone who kept ignoring me? Beloved, God does not ask these questions to shame you. He asks them to bring you home to yourself. Because the woman who chases is often not foolish. She is wounded. She is hopeful. She is carrying an old ache that says, please, this time, let me be worth staying for. And when someone gives just enough attention to keep that ache alive, she may mistake the cycle for connection. But God wants more for you than emotional crumbs. He wants you whole enough to recognize when something is not feeding you, only keeping you hungry. When you stop pursuing, you begin to recover the parts of yourself that were scattered in someone else's direction. Your attention returns. Your creativity returns. Your prayer life becomes clearer because your mind is no longer crowded by their inconsistency. Your sleep becomes deeper because your nervous system is no longer waiting for proof that you matter. Your laughter begins to sound like yours again. This is not small. This is restoration. Beloved, every moment you spent waiting to be chosen was a moment God still held you. He did not despise you while you were chasing. He was not angry at you for caring. He saw the tenderness beneath your effort. He saw the loneliness behind your persistence. He saw the way you kept lowering the price of your presence because you were afraid no one would pay attention if you stood in your full worth. And now he is teaching you to stand. Not to stand in pride, to stand in truth. The truth that mutual effort is not a luxury. It is the minimum soil where healthy love can grow. The truth that reciprocity is not a demand too high for your heart to make. The truth that someone who values you will not leave you doing all the emotional labor while they enjoy the comfort of being pursued. Beloved, healthy connection does not make you feel like you are auditioning for affection. It does not make you study silence like a language. It does not make you perform indifference just to protect yourself from disappointment. It does not make you pretend you care less than you do because caring openly has become too painful. Healthy connection lets you be honest. It lets you breathe. It lets you give without feeling foolish. And when you create room by stepping away from what ignores you, you make space for that kind of connection to arrive. Not because you are playing a game, not because you are trying to make someone jealous, not because you are using absence as punishment, but because your life cannot receive what is aligned while your hands are full of what keeps rejecting your presence. Sometimes God cannot give you the new because you are still emotionally tied to the almost loved, almost chosen, almost valued, almost seen, almost consistent, almost honest, almost safe, beloved. Almost can keep a woman trapped for years because almost gives enough hope to delay healing. Almost says, maybe tomorrow. Almost says, maybe if I try again. Almost says, maybe they just need time. But when almost becomes the pattern, wisdom must ask, how long will I keep calling this potential when it keeps producing pain? That question is holy. Let it do its work. You are allowed to choose relationships that do not require you to constantly translate neglect into meaning. You are allowed to desire people who show up without being chased. You are allowed to wait for love that meets you with presence, not confusion. You are allowed to stop entertaining dynamics where your effort is treated as expected and your needs are treated as inconvenient. Beloved, this is not bitterness. This is alignment. And alignment may feel lonely before it feels peaceful. Do not fear that middle place. The middle place is where God teaches you not to run back just because silence feels loud. It is where He teaches you to sit with your own heart and not abandon it. It is where He reminds you that solitude with dignity is better than connection with constant anxiety. One day, you will look back and realize that stopping the chase did not close your life. It opened it. It opened room for prayer that was not interrupted by panic. It opened room for friendships that felt mutual. It opened room for rest. It opened room for self-respect. It opened room for God to show you that being unseen by one person never meant you were invisible. So let the room remain. Do not fill it too quickly with another chase. Do not rush to replace the person you stopped pursuing. Let God heal the part of you that thinks quiet space must be filled immediately. Let Him make that space sacred. Let Him teach you that what belongs in your life will not require you to lose yourself trying to keep it there. Beloved, stop chasing long enough to see what stays. Stop reaching long enough to feel who reaches back. Stop running long enough to remember that you are already held. The original source says missing someone does not mean you were wrong to stop chasing them. It only proves that you cared. And beloved, this is one of the tenderest places in healing, because the heart can grieve what the spirit already knows it must release. You may stop reaching out and still miss their voice. You may stop checking your phone and still wonder if they thought of you. You may stop initiating and still feel the ache of wanting things to be different. You may choose dignity and still cry over the connection you hoped would finally become mutual. That grief does not mean you made the wrong decision. It means your love was real. It means your heart invested sincerely. It means you were not playing a game, not trying to win control, not pretending to care. You cared deeply. And now you are learning that caring for someone does not mean continuing to abandon yourself for them. Beloved, missing someone is not always a message from God to return. Sometimes it is simply the echo of attachment leaving your body. Sometimes it is the tenderness of memory. Sometimes it is the disappointment of a dream that never fully became reality. Sometimes it is the heart mourning the version of a relationship it kept praying would appear. Do not let nostalgia become your compass. Nostalgia remembers selectively. It remembers the moments they answered warmly, the times they made you laugh, the rare days they seemed present. It does not always remember the waiting, the confusion, the silence, the way your spirit sank when you realized you were carrying the relationship alone. Nostalgia can make a place that wounded you look soft again from a distance. But wisdom remembers the whole story. Ask yourself gently, do I miss the person as they truly were? Or do I miss the version of them I kept hoping they would become? Do I miss the relationship? Or do I miss the possibility I built in my heart? Do I want to return because God is leading me? Or because loneliness is trying to negotiate with my standards? Beloved, loneliness can be persuasive. It knows how to speak in the voice of urgency. It says, send one message. It says, maybe this time will be different. It says, at least they are familiar. It says, what if no one else comes? And if you are not anchored in truth, loneliness can convince you to reopen doors that peace already closed. But familiar emptiness is still emptiness. Do not return to being ignored just because being still feels uncomfortable. Do not run back to a half-hearted connection because the quiet makes you face yourself. Do not mistake the ache of withdrawal for a sign that the relationship was healthy. Sometimes peace feels unfamiliar because anxiety has been your normal for too long. God may use the quiet after pursuit to detox your soul from the need to be chosen by someone who could not meet you with care. That quiet may feel strange. It may feel too open. It may make you aware of how much of your day revolved around waiting, hoping, interpreting, and reaching. But beloved, stay there long enough for the quiet to become healing. Stay there long enough to hear your own voice again. Stay there long enough to remember what you enjoy. Stay there long enough to pray without asking God to make someone notice you. Stay there long enough to let your worth separate from their attention. There is a sacred restoration that happens when you no longer chase. Your nervous system begins to unlearn the cycle of hope and disappointment. Your heart begins to trust that silence does not have to be chased. Your mind begins to stop rehearsing explanations. Your dignity begins to rise from the floor where you kept laying it down in exchange for uncertain affection. Beloved, this is not the death of love. This is the purification of love. Love, when surrendered to God, becomes less desperate and more truthful. It no longer clings to what keeps wounding it. It no longer calls neglect a challenge to overcome. It no longer mistakes pursuit for devotion. It learns to bless without begging. It learns to release without hatred. It learns to say, I cared about you, but I will not lose myself trying to be seen by you. That sentence may hurt, but it may also set you free. Some people will misunderstand your distance. They may call it pride. They may say you changed. They may act surprised, even though they were present for every moment that taught you to step back. Let them misunderstand if they must. You do not owe a long explanation to someone who never honored your presence when you were trying to explain softly. Your distance does not have to be rude to be real. Your silence does not have to be bitter to be final. Your peace does not have to be approved to be sacred. Beloved, there is dignity in leaving without performing your pain. You do not have to prove how many times you were ignored. You do not have to present evidence of your exhaustion. You do not have to beg someone to validate the wound their absence created. God saw the messages you did not send. He saw the hope you kept reviving. He saw the way your face changed when you realized, once again, that you were not being met. And he also sees you now, choosing differently. He sees the strength it takes not to reach. He sees the trembling hand that does not send the text. He sees the tears you cry while still honoring the boundary. He sees you learning that self-respect is not coldness, it is covenant with the truth. Beloved, when love transforms into self-respect, it does not become less holy. It becomes safer. It becomes cleaner. It becomes aligned. You stop loving from fear and start loving from freedom. You stop giving to be chosen and start giving where your heart can remain whole. You stop chasing what ignores you and begin walking with the God who never needed you to perform to be loved. So if you miss them today, do not shame yourself. Bring that ache to the Lord. Tell him the truth. Tell him you cared. Tell him you wanted it to work. Tell him you feel the emptiness where the chase used to be. Then let him fill that emptiness with something stronger than attention. Let him fill it with identity. Let him fill it with peace. Let him fill it with the quiet certainty that being unseen by one person does not make you invisible. Beloved, missing them is not your command to return. Sometimes it is simply the final tenderness leaving your hands, making room for the life that can finally hold you back. The original source says that when you stop chasing, you stop settling, and you begin to recognize that ease is not boredom but alignment. And beloved, that truth can feel unfamiliar to a woman who has spent too long confusing anxiety with love. When you have lived in the chase, peace can feel strange. You may meet someone who answers with kindness, and part of you does not trust it. You may experience a friendship where effort moves both ways, and your nervous system still waits for disappearance. You may hear consistency and think, when will it change? You may stand in a room where you do not have to prove your worth, and the old wound inside you may whisper, this cannot be real, because chaos trains the heart to expect imbalance. It teaches you to interpret uncertainty as excitement. It teaches you to mistake distance for mystery. It teaches you to confuse emotional highs and lows with depth. It teaches you that the ache in your stomach means love is powerful, when sometimes it only means your spirit does not feel safe. Beloved, God does not want you addicted to emotional suspense. He wants you anchored. There is a kind of love, a kind of friendship, a kind of connection that does not require you to chase. It does not leave you wondering where you stand. It does not make you feel guilty for having needs. It does not make you compete for attention, perform for care, or apologize for wanting consistency. It meets you on level ground. It speaks with clarity. It brings a calm that may not feel dramatic, but over time you realize your soul is finally resting. Ask yourself gently, have I been rejecting peace because it feels unfamiliar? Have I called healthy connection boring because it does not trigger the old panic? Have I become so used to chasing that being met feels almost suspicious? Beloved, healing will change your taste. You will no longer be impressed by half effort simply because it arrives after silence. You will no longer call inconsistency interesting. You will no longer romanticize someone's emotional unavailability as depth. You will no longer confuse crumbs with provision simply because you have been hungry for so long. That is growth. And growth may feel like losing interest in people you once tried hard to keep. Not because you hate them, not because you are above them, but because your spirit has learned the difference between being wanted in moments and being valued over time. Someone may want your encouragement, your softness, your patience, your attention, your loyalty, your ability to understand. But wanting what you provide is not the same as valuing who you are. This distinction matters. There are people who enjoy your presence but do not honor your person. They like your warmth but not your boundaries. They like your availability but not your honesty. They like your devotion but not your needs. They like the comfort you bring, but not the responsibility of meeting you with care. Beloved, do not confuse being useful with being cherished. You were not created to be someone's emotional convenience. You were not created to stand on the edge of someone's life, waiting for the leftover attention of a distracted heart. You were not created to keep proving that you are worthy of being remembered, included, heard, and held with dignity. When God restores self-respect in a woman, her standards begin to rise naturally. She stops begging for what should be mutual. She stops chasing what should recognize her. She stops auditioning for relationships where she already feels unseen. She begins to desire peace more than intensity, consistency more than charm, honesty more than emotional performance, and mutuality more than the thrill of almost being chosen. Almost chosen is not chosen. Almost valued is not valued. Almost safe is not safe. Beloved, do not build your life on almost. Almost will keep you waiting at the door. Almost will feed you enough hope to delay your healing. Almost will make you feel guilty for wanting more while never offering enough to let you rest. Almost will ask you to keep imagining a future that their present behavior refuses to support. But God deals in truth, and truth, when you finally receive it, may hurt less than the constant ache of uncertainty. There is freedom in accepting that not everyone will value you, and that this is not an indictment of your worth. Some people do not have the maturity to recognize what you carry. Some people cannot meet your depth. Some people only know how to receive love, not return it. Some people are not evil. They are simply not aligned. Let that be enough. You do not have to turn every lack of reciprocity into a mission to prove yourself. You do not have to convince every person who ignores you that you are worth attention. You do not have to keep chasing closed doors because you are afraid an open one will never come. Beloved, the God who created you is not limited by the person who overlooked you. He can bring safe friendships. He can bring honest love. He can bring rooms where your voice does not have to fight for space. He can bring people who recognize your value without needing a long explanation. But he may first ask you to release the pattern that taught you to accept less, because new connections require new posture. You cannot keep chasing neglect and still be fully available for what honors you. You cannot keep measuring your worth by someone's silence and still receive love with open hands. You cannot keep running after what diminishes you and expect your soul to feel rested. So stand still, not frozen in fear, but rooted in trust. Stand still long enough to see who reaches back. Stand still long enough to notice who honors your absence and who only loved your pursuit. Stand still long enough for God to show you that value does not need to be begged into recognition. Beloved, what is aligned will not require you to abandon yourself. What is healthy will not make you smaller. What is sent by God will not demand that you silence your discernment to keep it. It will have fruit. It will have peace. It will have consistency. It will have room for your whole self, not just the parts that are easy to receive. The woman you are becoming is allowed to choose that. She is allowed to stop settling for almost. She is allowed to wait for mutuality. She is allowed to let peace feel strange until it begins to feel like home. And one day, beloved, what once felt boring will feel like safety. What once felt unfamiliar will feel like grace. What once felt too quiet will feel like God giving your heart a place to rest. The original source says, one day you will look back at the version of yourself who chased silence and feel compassion, not shame, because walking away was not a loss but a return. And beloved, that is where this journey must end. Not with bitterness toward the people who ignored you, but with tenderness toward the woman who kept reaching because she wanted to be loved. Do not hate her. Do not mock her. Do not call her foolish. She was trying to survive an ache she did not yet know how to name. She was trying to prove she was worth staying for. She was trying to turn distance into closeness, silence into care, crumbs into a meal. She believed that if she gave enough, waited enough, understood enough, forgave enough, someone would finally recognize the treasure of her presence. Beloved, she was not weak. She was wounded. And now God is teaching her that love does not require pursuit at the cost of dignity. There is a holy grief in admitting that someone may never meet you the way you hoped. You may grieve the conversation that never happened, the apology that never came, the consistency that never arrived, the version of them you kept believing in even while their actions told another story. You may grieve the time, the energy, the prayers, the emotional labor, the pieces of yourself you scattered at the feet of someone who never bent down to gather them with care. Let yourself grieve, but do not call the grief a command to return. Sometimes grief is only the soul releasing what hope held too tightly. Ask yourself gently, am I willing to stop chasing not because I no longer care, but because I finally care about myself too? Am I willing to let God comfort the part of me that wanted to be chosen by someone who kept choosing absence? Am I willing to believe that being ignored by them does not mean being forgotten by Him? Beloved, that last question can heal something deep. because rejection has a way of lying. It whispers, if they did not see you, maybe there is nothing to see. It whispers, if they did not choose you, maybe you are not worth choosing. It whispers, if they could ignore you, maybe your presence is easy to lose. But rejection is not revelation. God's voice is revelation, and God does not speak over you the way neglect speaks. He does not call you too much because you have feelings. He does not call you needy because you desire mutual care. He does not call you difficult because you want consistency. He does not treat your presence like background noise. He calls you beloved. He calls you seen. He calls you worth guarding. When you stop chasing people who ignore you, you are not closing your life. You are opening it to what can actually meet you. You are opening space for prayer that is not tangled in panic. Space for friendships that do not make you perform. Space for love that does not make you beg. Space for joy that does not depend on someone else's attention. Space for the woman God is rebuilding beneath all the running. This is the return, a return to dignity, a return to balance, a return to a life where love meets you halfway and stays. Beloved, do not be afraid of the quiet that comes after you stop running. The quiet may feel empty at first, but let God fill it. Let Him fill it with truth. Let Him fill it with rest. Let Him fill it with self-respect. Let Him fill it with people who know how to reach back. Let Him fill it with a deeper confidence that no longer rises and falls with someone else's response. You are allowed to become unavailable to neglect. You are allowed to stop interpreting silence. You are allowed to stop proving your worth. You are allowed to stop standing at locked doors and start walking toward open ones. And when the old urge returns, when your hand reaches for the phone, when your heart wants to send one more message just to quiet the ache, pause, breathe, pray. Ask yourself, am I reaching from love or from fear? Am I moving toward peace or back toward a pattern? Am I honoring the woman God is healing or abandoning her again for the possibility of being noticed? Beloved, the pause is sacred. In that pause, you can choose differently. You can choose not to chase. You can choose not to perform. You can choose not to answer indifference with desperation. You can choose to stand still long enough for what truly values you to come into focus. The right people will not make you beg to matter. They may be imperfect, but they will be present. They may be busy, but they will not be careless. They may have seasons of heaviness, but they will not make absence their language. They will meet effort with effort, care with care, honesty with honesty, and respect with respect. And until they come, your life is not on hold. You still have rooms to enter, dreams to nourish, prayers to pray, laughter to recover, gifts to cultivate, mornings to notice, healing to receive. There is a version of you waiting beyond the chase, calmer, clearer, softer, wiser, more rooted in God than in anyone's attention. Go meet her, not with shame for how long it took, with compassion for how much she survived. Beloved, stop chasing people who ignore you. Stand where you are. Let the silence tell the truth. Let your dignity rise. Let your spirit rest. Let God remind you that what is meant for you will not require you to abandon yourself to keep it. You are not an option. You are not background noise. You are not a woman made to wait forever outside a closed door. You are seen by God, held by God, loved by God, and worthy of relationships that recognize your presence without requiring your pursuit. So walk forward, eyes open, heart soft, spine straight, hands empty enough to receive what is mutual, honest, peaceful, and real. Because when pursuit ends, self-respect begins. And when self-respect begins, the woman who once chased silence finally comes home to herself.